All right, so it's Sunday again. I just made my last video public, which I don't know, I started filming 2 weeks ago on Sunday. Half of it was from yesterday, getting the coil winding jig all set up and getting my experimental apparatus all built. But okay, so at the end of the last one, I was like, yo, first of all, I need to run errands. So I need to get food for myself, food for my cat. I need to clean my apartment. And then kind of my goal to go a little bit above and beyond, if you will, is if I could get one thing done this weekend that would make the rest of my week more productive, or that would open up more opportunities for me during the week, it'd be to go into work. I mean, the big goal would be for like half a day, so like 4 hours, get a solid, 4.5 hour time block to work on stuff. But also being that tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and people, for the most part, I'm assuming everyone's going to be out of office, but it's still Monday. So I can go in and I can get, like, tomorrow's kind of like my bonus. But if I could do any small thing that would push things forward, it would be setting up my work laptop. So I don't have Wi-Fi, as I've mentioned probably many times at this point. I don't pay for internet. I don't have internet in my apartment. I just use my phone service, which is kind of shoddy, honestly. I have pretty bad service. Uploading a YouTube video using my phone as a hotspot is always an adventure. So if I could do one thing, though, it'd be setting up my work laptop. So like going into the office to set that up, and then just like reading the code base, planning out what my work is going to be tomorrow, the next day, for the rest of the week. Kind of like the big deadline is like Tuesday for certain things, but then if I can just like nail it, then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there'll be a little bit less pressure, so that I can like push things forward. Because it's kind of like, I've already mentioned that I'm still relatively new at my new job, right? I've had like 52 working days. That's a seventh of a year. See how that math works out really nice. But learning the code base takes a while and all this stuff. And 52 days sounds like a lot. And on the one hand, it sort of is like, I feel like I should have day one just like been 100% familiar with the code base and just like cranked stuff out just from the beginning, right? But in reality, it doesn't work that way. Feels like a long time, but I am getting up to speed. But still, 52 days also in another sense is still nothing. So I'm going to cut the rant short. Probably the next time you see me, I'm going to have a bunch of food. So we're going to cut to that in 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm back. Hopefully the audio is okay. Took about a little bit over an hour, so good timing. Got food for both me and my son, Mr. Cat, Mr. Monkey Boy. And so, okay, I have to be careful putting this away because he knows the sound. Oh, here he comes. He can hear that bag. He's trying to get that bag. I have to refill it today. But I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to do a little bit of like a grocery haul, even though it's not that remarkable right now. Yeah, this little boy is going crazy right now. He knows that he's got new food, fresh food coming anyways. Ziplocs, doesn't really matter. Look at this guy. Anyways, so I got some Ziploc bags, doesn't really matter. Saltines, and then sardines, saltine sardines, throw a dash of Cholula on, and I'll do like one sleeve of these with a can of these as like a snack. So then there's a lot of frozen food this time around. Got a lasagna. This is like rated at 4.5 servings, but I'll usually eat like half of this. I was looking for one that was just a single serving, but whatever. And then I got a ton of these frozen meals, these healthy choice ones. These are my lunches during the week. So switching it up, I got this beef merlot one. This one's a little smaller, 13 grams of protein, so I'll probably eat like 2 of those at once. So I got 2 of those. Got some of these fettuccine chicken Alfredo ones. These chicken ones have a little bit more protein. These ones are like 21 grams of protein. This one's 24. These only have 13. These have about 20, 24, 21. But I don't have to be as strict about, getting the exact amount of protein every meal. As long as I'm kind of in that ballpark, I can round it out at the end of the day because I got one of these, a nice steak. So my fridge is very empty. I have 2 pork chops to cook today, 2 that are already cooked that are going to go in ramen. This guy is going wild. There's a wild black panther. So then I'll eat the pork chops with ramen, honestly. Some people will bash on that, but I found that I really need to get my electrolytes, salts, especially after going hard in the jiu-jitsu. And then got some shredded cheese and tortillas, because what I'll do is I will cook the steak, eat half of it, and then save half for the next day. Dice that saved half, make steak quesadillas for breakfast. And then I already have enough spinach, so that's why it's kind of light on the vegetables this time. And toss these. And then orange juice. Got a 6-pack of Coke already. I usually get one of those a week, but I've been just in a little more of an orange juice mood. And then I will restock my chocolate milk. It's like, yeah, sugar and chocolate milk, but it just really helps me to adhere and drink all of it and like want to drink more milk. And it's an easy way, like, with those frozen meals, those are like 20 grams of protein, so that's like a little light. I usually, in the past, I've shot for like 30 grams per meal, and then I would do like 4 to 5 meals a day, and then maybe get a little bit higher than 30 grams, because if it's on the closer to 4 meals side than 5 meals, right? It's getting about 1 gram of protein per lean body mass weight. It's weight, not mass, because it's pounds, but like I usually just like walk around on earth at like 155 pounds. So right now there is a little bit of incentive to bulk, but then I'm not 100% muscle. So 150 grams of protein a day. Honestly, I found out that like if I am diligent about hitting that number, I can actually get kind of backed up, and I do a little bit better going just, closer to what my true, like saying, maybe I'm between 12 to 15% body fat, right? Then I can slightly lower that protein amount, but I usually miss the fat percentage in my allocation for like my macros every day. So like getting protein and carbs is never a problem for me. It's always getting the fats. So I'm gonna put all this away, and this guy's going crazy. He's like, where's the food? So I'm gonna pick all this up, start cleaning, and alright, well, I hope that you guys can't hear my dishwasher right now. I have my cat on my lap right now, sitting on my couch. I cleaned everything in my apartment, almost. I still have to clean my bathroom, and then I was gonna vacuum the bedroom and like wet Swiffer the floor out here, but just taking a quick break. I'm gonna carefully set up my tripod here, and I'm gonna read from 1929. This is actually a book that I started last year. I got it right when it was released, but then this is one of the books that I did not finish last year. I ended up stopping reading this because it was around the time that I got my new job, and then I just kind of, I don't want to say I got bored with it, but it was just like, I wanted to start reading like some technical books that were related to my new job. Like I had to get really up to speed on like C# programming, for example, which I've only previously ever done a little bit of C, and then there was C++, and like a lot of MATLAB, honestly. And then there's like, anyways, so I had to brush up on C# programming, and then there's a lot of physics stuff that, I mean, it's not like anyone was telling me to read about, but it was like, if I brush up on this, it would make sense because it's like, numerical modeling and simulation of electromagnetic phenomena, right? So anyways, this kind of fell by the wayside. I was a little bit short of 100 pages deep, but it's like a really easy book. Okay, I did get a little bit bored of it because it's not that it's like a boring book, but it's more, and not to throw shade on Andrew Ross Sorkin, love watching him on CNBC when I used to have the time to like watch the news or whatever. It's well written, but it's like more written as, it's nonfiction, but it's kind of like a fiction book where you can just like sit and read it, and it's really easy and stuff like that. So the book that I read before 1929 was Listening to the Law by Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And then I followed up with this. And so going from a little more of like, that's, Listening to the Law is a shorter book, but it's way more, in depth. There's like, serious legal parts of it and stuff like that, where I was just like, okay, I'm going to put 1929 to the side. But on a Sunday afternoon, after getting partway done with cleaning, I'm going to keep reading it because then I can just knock this one out. My other mains right now that I'm reading are Not Even Wrong by Stephen Voigt, which is like a mathematician's criticism of string theory. And then in a serious manner, I've been going through Classical Electrodynamics, the Jackson book, and the PDE book by Lawrence C. Evans. So I'll read the E&M book side by side with the PDE book, because like, for example, the first chapter is like, okay, you have Coulomb's law. Coulomb did his experiment with charged bodies and torsion bounces, and he figures out, okay, F equals K times Q1 Q2 over R squared. And then the whole entire chapter is like, how did physicists and kind of mathematicians in the background react to that and like develop that? So you develop like your potential function, you look at the work done, force, moving charged bodies through fields some given distance. Does that depend on the path? How does potential or electric field change when you're across like a boundary. And you can consider like in real terms, okay, maybe it's like a bounded body and you're going across a surface, or maybe you're going across, two different materials with different dielectric constants or something like that. And then it slowly like ramps up the PDE material where you're like, okay, all of this Coulomb's law stuff, these are solutions really of Laplace's equation. Okay, well, that's homogeneous. What's the non-homogeneous framing of the problem? Okay, well, that's Poisson's equation. And then, these are all, how do you think about PDE problems? Well, it's a boundary conditions problem. Are you using Dirichlet or von Neumann, or what's the physical interpretation of like Cauchy boundary conditions? How does that apply to electrostatics? And then it builds up where you're like, okay, well, PDE theory has, these complete analytic solutions you can get with green functions. And then it starts to be like, oh, well, if you have green functions, that's cool. You could also use Coulomb's law because it's all susceptible to linear superposition. But it's like once your problems start getting a little bit complicated, it's like those methods, either like finding a green function that'll give you a solution, it's like maybe that's not realistic, it's extremely difficult. Doing just Coulomb's law in its, let's say, undergrad baby form, and you're just going to add up all these vectors. It's like, well, maybe it's not realistic to be able to do that. You need more methods. So you look at orthogonal functions, you look at, or like Fourier series, you're looking at, there's like the method of images, I think it's called, where you can sort of like make geometric assumptions based upon what your problem is to still be able to use the baby version of Coulomb's law and like get all the answers you want. And then it slowly gets into things like variational methods, finite element methods, etc. And then it's also going into things like, okay, well, you're doing all this electrostatic stuff. We're talking about electric field, charge density. Well, the next step in a physical interpretation would be like capacitance, right? So that's kind of like, and considering things like, okay, well, the Laplacian, if you have a spherical charged body, maybe it's just the surface, or maybe there's just like a single charge at the origin. What happens when you get really close to the origin? Oh, well, there's a singularity. How do you handle that mathematically? So like I'll fill in the gaps with that stuff, and then I don't myself commit my identity one way or the other to be like, oh, I'm going to be, putting on my physicist hat on right now, and I'm going to just skip over the math. I just want the results. I just want the expressions that you can make calculations from, predictions, etc. Nothing wrong with that. Or I'm not going to just put on my mathematician hat and then say, oh, these physicists, they just make hand-waving arguments, and, the more fundamental things are like Laplace's equation and Poisson's equation. So like, I'm not going to think about how do you make physical interpretations to get to things like work and capacitance, because it's kind of like when you're in math land, you could look at it and be like, well, Laplace's equation, Poisson's equation, and all this, it could be heat. It isn't necessarily electromagnetic fields or like electric fields, right? So you could just say, oh, I'm just going to go into, looking at all these different boundary conditions. How do you solve these different kinds of problems, and just not worry about the physics side of things? So I'll go back and forth with like the classical electrodynamics book side by side with the PD book, and it's hard hitting. So, and my real main, I guess you could say, Not Even Wrong by Stephen Voigt is, okay, it's still physics, right? So I'm like 150 or some pages into it, and it's like, there are no equations. There has only been like one figure so far where it was looking at an example, trying to get the reader to understand different generations of particles of the standard model. So it's like really trying to like bring it to a popular audience, but still at the same time, Not Even Wrong is talking about the historical development of the standard model and how different particle accelerators and stuff were built in order to generate the experimental data, experimental results, in order to both ask and come up with new questions about fundamentals in elementary particle physics, stuff like that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm also reading constantly the C# programming reference book, which is like 1,600, 1,700 pages. And I'm not going to read the entire thing, obviously. I read a lot of the C# stuff will be like, fundamentals or things that are like directly related to the code base that I work on day to day at work. So I was like, you know what? Things are starting to level off. Now would be a good time to just like finish 1929. And the pages are not that big. There's not like super dense text on each page. It's 400 or so pages long, but like, it's written kind of at the pace of a popular paperback fiction novel. So, like I said, no discredit to Andrew Ross Sorkin. It is a good book. I really like reading about, it's kind of one of those things where like, obviously 1929 was released at a very auspicious time. Like right around when 1929, the book came out, there was the whole circular investment between AI companies and, related tech companies. And there was, it was like in the fall of 2025, and the stock market crash was the fall of 1929. And if you've watched any of the interviews of Andrew Ross Sorkin, he talks about, oh, well, it's not just about the stock market crash. There were things leading up to it, and then there were events that happened after it, and cumulatively we sort of are at a point where we look back in history and kind of assume that, oh, the stock market crashed and then the Great Depression happened. But he aims to flesh out some of the human details and really go into like more granular, fine-grained depth into like what actually happened leading up to and after the stock market crash of 1929. So I haven't gotten to the crash, but it's like reading about the different mergers, and there's, from my take on it, there's like aspects of like what American socioeconomic class was like, class structure, class differences, social differences, like the spread of information, things like the radio were really new technology at that time. And, philosophies around finance, economics, investment were not really like in their infancy then, really, but it's like now in 2026, you can go through like an economics 101 20-minute video on YouTube or something like that, and there'll be a lot more depth that just people in general, even maybe at like the highest levels of finance and like American capitalism during the 1920s, 1930s, they weren't really exactly like uniformly thinking along those lines or exposed to those kinds of ideas, right? Like there was no phrase yet, for example, from like off the top of the head, like the Reagan era, like trickle down economics and those kinds of things. So it's like how the so-called common man in America was very different from like the JP Morgans and stuff of 1928, 1929 and all that stuff. It's like still a really interesting read. But I'm going to keep reading and finish cleaning my apartment. And then I'm probably, I don't know, I don't want to jinx myself, but it's like if I could just set up my laptop from work, then even I could like hypothetically work from home tomorrow, just reading the code base and stuff. So, yeah, you guys will find out in the next clip or something like that. So, all right. As proof that I'm a man of my word, I mean what I say, I am now in the parking lot of my building, and I sort of like pre-packed my lunches for Tuesday, those frozen meals I showed in my grocery haul. So that way I've got my laptop bag, and I always carry around my fanny pack, but it'll just be a lot of stuff to carry in on Tuesday with like my lunches, my water bottle, my coffee mug, my fanny pack, and a laptop bag. So I'm going to be staging my lunches for Tuesday, go in, set up my laptop. You know, it's kind of along the lines of how relatively new I am that, I mean, they gave me my laptop late last year because it's like the idea is that if it were a snow day or something, or like a heavy snow day, I could look at the weather the day before, bring my laptop home, and then I'd be allowed to work from home. There's like a policy where like people are allowed to work from home 1 day a week, but only after having been with the company for like so long. And I'm just like against work from home in general, but it's like, you know, tomorrow's Martin Luther King Day. There was a deadline that used to be the end of the day last Thursday, and then it got pushed to last week Friday, and then now it's this upcoming Tuesday. It would have been this Monday had it been not Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so this lady is driving by, and I'm sure she's looking at me, but I've gotten to the point with this whole YouTube game where I've really stopped caring as much about being seen filmed in public. But speaking of filming in public, I'm still like obviously not allowed and not going to film in the office for obvious reasons, but just wanted to like, you know, catch a little take before I go in, set up my laptop. Hopefully it's not going to take more than a couple hours, and then I'll see you guys when I'm out of here. So you're about to time warp a few hours ahead. Okay, holy smokes, you guys. It's like 5 hours after I got in. It's like 8:16 now, and I mostly just ended up setting up my work laptop the whole time, if I'm perfectly honest. I need to switch to the full red tint sunglasses, and I'm like multitasking right now. I am cooking up this lasagna because I am hungry. Alright, this has to go in for 17 minutes. Lift one corner of the film. Whoops. Hang on, it's hard to do this one-handed. Lift one corner, more like kind of peel strips off of one corner. Anywho, it's more like puncture a hole in the corner. Put this in here. Okay, well, the good news is that 17 minutes. Good news is that I downloaded most everything I need. I'm super happy to see my little boy. There's no woman on planet Earth, I am convinced, who is as happy to see me when I get home as my cat. Look at this little boy. he is excited to see me. I think he associates me with food and he just wants some more. Probably a combination of both, but downloaded everything I need to build the branch that I want to work on tomorrow. Well, all the branches, they all require the same stuff, but I did not successfully install the Intel math kernel library. That was the last part. And I kept getting this error, and I almost ate one of my frozen meals I brought with me. But I was like, I've got that lasagna. I wanted to keep my meals staged. But I'm very grateful all around. I used to work in food service, retail. I know I'll give you a treat in a little second, boy. Cats aren't like dogs where he doesn't understand what I'm saying if I say treat or anything like that, but he's going to get one in a second anyways. But when I used to work in food service and retail, you get scheduled, right? So for retail, it'd maybe be like noon to 8 or something like that, or you'd have to work a closing shift at the restaurant, and you don't really have much of a choice on the exact time that you leave in that case. But, I always say you can't be grateful for things that are not the case. So I'm not being like grateful, oh yeah, I don't work in retail or food service anymore like I did. That was like over 10 years ago. But it's more of like, I'm very grateful that, one, I was able to choose to go in today. Two, I'm grateful that I did go in today and that I, took 5 hours, but like, I could only imagine if I would have started this, tomorrow or Tuesday or something like that. 5 hours and having like 3 hours left in a rounded 8-hour workday to then actually get the development work done. So like 5 hours setting up my laptop leaves 3 hours to do the actual coding. That would have been high pressure, stressful. So being able to choose, make my own, it's not like making my own hours, but it's like, time management, getting a little older, a little more mature, being able to plan things out like that, I'm very grateful for. Grateful that I made the decision to go to the grocery store as well so that I can have, a nice lasagna meal here. I'm not going to go on a rant about how like, back in medieval times, this would be a perfect division of labor opportunity for justifying the institution of marriage, right? It's like we have modern appliances, washer, dryer, frozen meals for crying out loud. And I'm not too picky about what I do cook. And I did clean today. I didn't do 100%, like the vacuuming, clean my bathroom, but I can do that tomorrow. But it's like, I can, thanks to modern appliances, I can do all of that myself. I cook, clean, wash, dry, put away, rinse and repeat, and I pay for cat insurance. So, and he's happy to see me when I get home. So, I'm going to enjoy this lasagna here. And I would say today was a successful day. So even though I didn't get the MKL library installed, and it's like the blue light glasses, another note about that, these aren't the red tint ones. You guys have seen me in like the reading streams and whatnot wearing the red tinted ones. My desk, I still am in like a cube farm, except the cube walls are invisible. It's just like an open desk seating arrangement where I am currently. Because I obviously, I'm not very tenured in with the company yet. But it's like I'm sitting under the one light at my desk that like has to stay on for like fire safety reasons or whatever. It's just like a spotlight over my desk. Then I've got like laptop, 2 screens. So definitely threw these on a few hours in, and it took way longer than expected, but yeah, I'll be able to get done stuff hopefully tomorrow, and it won't be like taxing on my hotspot. I'm a little worried that my laptop doesn't have that much memory. I have like 30 gigs, 40 gigs left maybe after installing everything. So, and it's definitely not very fast. And good thing I have an external mouse and keyboard because the ones on my laptop stank. But it's almost lasagna time, so I'm gonna take off my vest. All right, guys, switched out. And that is out of the microwave and it's cooled down. Last thing I'll say on the gratitude note is that, been getting the momentum of not only work, lifting, making these videos, but also jujitsu. So what? It's 8:40 right now. Okay, 8:42. If I'm going to jujitsu, I'm probably going to be getting out at around like 7:30 or something. By the time I get back home, take my gi off, do all that stuff, it's like 8 o'clock, okay? So dialing in the efficiency to get in all of the things in a day that I need to do. It's not like that I need or ought to or that I should do, but it's like, it feels at this point in my life, let my cat into his cabinet. Feels like it's a point in my life where these are the kinds of habits, routines, structures that lead me to being the best version of myself. And so no complaints here. I'm going to enjoy this lasagna. I might continue this vlog into tomorrow, so see you guys tomorrow, I guess. All right. It is now 6:35 on Monday. I spent about 4.5 hours still trying to complete getting my laptop set up. By getting my laptop set up, I mean finishing getting all of the third-party libraries and everything installed, but then being able to successfully build and run the code base for work. So I got all the way to the last step, which is being able to run it. But the problem is, I think I installed too new of a version of Boost. So, Boost has all these numerical routines, doing like matrix stuff under the hood that's faster and all that. We all know. But I think there's like, a bunch of different projects that comprise the entire application. And there was one that relies on Boost. And the build made all these errors that were referring to commands, functions that are internal to Boost, part of the Boost libraries. And I was like, well, I have all of the other stuff. I'm just going to suppress those errors as warnings. And then, things ran, it started, but it wasn't showing any of the code from the code base being built into the application anyways. So I installed everything. It's all on there. It's just maybe I have the wrong version of Boost, and then, yeah. So ideally, I would have liked to get in. I would have liked to check out the branch that my bug ticket is for and done some iterations, fixed it ideally, but the best I can do is just kind of like read code for an hour, and then first thing when I get in tomorrow into my desktop, actually go ahead and implement it. And it's like not an extremely difficult bug ticket by any means. It's just the lacking point is my own incompetency, lack of knowledge of the code base, not being able to be like handed a ticket and then I can say, oh, I know what part of the code base all of this stuff is in, and then have an idea of how to fix it, and then sit down, go in there, and then fix it. It's like really still an exploratory task. But being that there was kind of like, a version deadline that came and went late last week was pushed forward to tomorrow. It's like the pressure's on, so I didn't go to jiu-jitsu tonight. I mean, it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so it was open actually, believe it or not, but I didn't go. And my goal lately has just been to go 2 times a week and, one gi day, one no gi day, the no gi day being Friday, stand-up wrestling, that sort of stuff. So today, Monday, would have been the gi day. But I'm not going gung-ho now that I've been ramping it back up because, like, after I got injured time flies, it was like late 2023. I am super cognizant of getting injured now. I lifted for a decade before, but it's important for me to have in my routine lifting now because, like, lifting and doing jiu-jitsu go hand in hand as far as, like, recovering, being able to stay on the mat, strengthening my joints. Like, whenever I go to the gym to lift weights, I'm always, like, doing the rotator cuff moves with, like, the lightest weight on the cable tower kind of thing, and, like, stretching with the bands and all that, and foam rolling so that I can keep everything, lubed up and going. But I will probably just YOLO, not care what my neighbors think, and just vacuum my bedroom, hopefully before or around 7 o'clock. And I still need to clean my bathroom, but I shaved the beard, trimmed the beard, and I'm going to trim my hair, just the back, like my neckline. And so that's going to make a bunch of hair everywhere. So once that's done, it'll be like, okay, time to clean the bathroom, Swiffer, wet Swiffer out here, vacuumed my rug yesterday, and I Swiffered at least the kitchen, but, finish off the 3-day weekend, and, still go to bed super early compared to, like, I don't know, ordinary normies, I guess. That's just how I think of it, whatever. But that way I can perhaps go and lift real early tomorrow morning, since I didn't go to jiu-jitsu tonight, because I usually try to space things out, give it at least like 24 to 48 hours or 36 hours between either going and lifting or showing up on the mats. So I don't do, like, jiu-jitsu at night and then go lift the next morning kind of stuff, because it's like I'm 100% natural and I'm 31 years old. I keep saying that now. It's like I really feel the pressure of, like, I can't get away with the stuff I did in my 20s. It's not like I was, like, buck wild, going to, like, I never was, like, a bar goer or anything like that, or, like, stay up late and, like, go out or anything like that. But it's like, I'm still, like, feeling, okay, well, after I got injured, I've got to, focus on recovery and, like, keep those habits in place so that it's like I can still do the things that I enjoy, lifting weights, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, all that, when I'm 35, 37, 42, hopefully 50 later. Because, getting injured and stuff, I kind of got lucky. It's like in the future, it could only be worse, and it costs a lot of money to go to the doctor and get stuff fixed up when, things happen. So I'm trying to minimize my exposure to athletic injuries, but I'm going to do a little bit of cosmetic, clean up the hair a little bit and all that. That way I'm fresh for tomorrow. And at least I got most of the way with having my laptop all good to go, and probably do a little code reading, read a little bit of 1929, And I'd say that's Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. So, all right, last clip. It's now 8:15, so it took about, 30, 45 minutes to clean, but I mean it when I say it. I cook, clean, wash, dry, put away. Tomorrow, rinse and repeat. I mean, today I cooked pork chops, cleaned my bathroom, vacuumed, dried all the dishes, put them all away. And yeah, so honestly, the thing that's fallen by the wayside is reading code to figure out how I'm going to fix that bug tomorrow. But got my work bag all set, got my work outfit all set. I'm going to do some reading, keep making progress, and if I make it to the gym at like 4:30 to 5, that'll be a success because I showered just now. Like, did a very thorough shower so I can go to the gym, rinse off. I don't have to, like, when I say thorough, it's like I shaved, lined the beard up, I do this like acne scrub, all that stuff. So I don't have to do that tomorrow morning before I go to work. Tweezed the brows a little bit. And like I said, cut the back of my neck. I don't know how I'm going to show that without just doing an awkward shot, but do a little bit of reading, and this might be it for this vlog, but I might keep cranking these out, do that whole throwaway 2018 vlog style for you guys. And if I lose subscribers, I lose subscribers, but there will be more math, science stuff coming up, so this is the end. Peace out, you guys. See you in the next one.